When you are living in a college town like Ithaca, New York, you meet a lot of interesting people. Our close family friend, Jose Andres, is an evolutionary geneticist. Over the years, Jose has told us entertaining stories about his projects and research. Being an academic biologist doesn't mean you just hang around university or work in a lab all day. Jose travels around the world. He looks for exotic animals. One of his big research projects was on the poison dart frog. He went to South America to collect his own samples. For another of his projects, he went to the Galapagos Islands where Darwin discovered evolution. This is me. Since I'm studying biology this semester myself, I'm curious about how Jose got started with it and why he decided to do evolutionary genetics. I asked him to tell me about his life.
Hola, I'm Jose Andres. I'm an evolutionary geneticist working at Cornell University. An evolutionary geneticist is a scientist that looks at the variation in DNA, little pieces of DNA in populations, and with that information we can reconstruct the past of those populations and see how those populations have changed over time. I do have many projects. Some of them actually take me to the rainforest in Colombia, where we're trying to understand the genetic variation behind the different colors in poison dart frogs. Some of them have taken me to the Galapagos Islands, where we try to understand the differences between populations of mockingbirds in the archipelago, and some of them just take me to the creek, where we're trying to find what kind of species can we find in a cup of water, just by looking at the genetic footprint. Well, scientists can look at what we call environmental DNA, which is little bits of DNA, genetic information, that falls into the water as organisms move around and happen to be there. So we will take a cup of water, filter it, take it to the lab, and do genetic analysis. And in that way, we get to know who or what type of organisms are there. Poison dart frogs are both very colorful and poisonous. So what we were trying to understand is which genes are behind both of those traits: the colors, the bright colors, and the ability to produce venom, to produce poison, and not kill themselves. So actually, the chemicals that the frogs use as a poison, they don't produce that poison. They actually take it from the environment. So how it works is that those chemicals that we call alkaloids, they are in plants. Those plants get eaten by ants, mostly, and some other bugs. And the frogs feed on those bugs, and those chemicals go from the plant to the ants, to the frog, and the frog basically takes them, accumulates them, and put them on the skin, and that's how they become poisonous. In the Galapagos, we study mockingbirds. Those are the birds that Darwin first wrote about when he was thinking about his hypothesis of natural selection as the main force driving evolution. Well, we're using modern genetic techniques. Actually, we're sequencing the entire genome of the mockingbirds to look at what kind of changes and where those changes are that make mockingbirds from different islands slightly different. It's really special to be in the Galapagos when you are an evolutionary biologist. As you can imagine, there's something particularly gratifying about walking the same paths that Charles Darwin did back in the day. But to me, the most relevant feeling about being in the Galapagos was to experience some of the pristine nature in those islands that are like still remote and that they don't have any population of humans other than any populations of humans. I'll argue that evolutionary geneticists are the scientists that have come the closest to invent a time machine. And what I mean by that is that we can look at genetic variation in populations and make inferences just by looking at that variation, make inferences about the past. As a biologist, I probably see the world through slightly different lenses than most people do. Think about how many people think about nature as something romantic and peaceful, and I don't see nature in that way for the most part. When I see nature, what I see is a war zone. Being an evolutionary biologist has impacted every aspect of my life. I mean, I won't be here sitting here in Ithaca doing this if it's not because I decided to study evolutionary genetics. I would have like never been to Australia or jungle, or I would have like never thought about the kind of problems that I do. I mean, even my view of the world is unique because I study evolutionary genetics. So I think that, I mean, yes, evolutionary genetics has had a tremendous impact.
After talking to Jose, I felt that I understood for the first time how the study of biology can relate to someone's life. Becoming an expert in something like genetics for Jose can connect you to other people and places in the world, and can take you on rich adventures.